Joining us now, January 6th committee member and House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff. Congressman Schiff, a lot to talk about with you. I want to start, though, with January 6th because two big things came out this week. I want to talk about the evidence that your committee found that leads to the fact that President Trump may have, in fact, broke the law. Also, a subpoena request came out this week for Donald Trump Jr.'s fiancée, Kimberly Guilfoyle. What is significant about these two findings?
Well, first, we did a brief in a case involving an attorney named John Eastman, who claims to have represented Donald Trump and claims that his communications, therefore, are protected by attorney-client privilege. The judge in that case asked us whether we thought the exception, the crime fraud exception, applied. That is, an attorney can't protect the communications with a client if those communications have evidence of crime or fraud. And here, we believe they do, that the president and his campaign may have been in violation of a number of federal laws, including a law that prohibits corruptly interfering with an official proceeding. And, of course, the joint session of Congress that the president sought to interfere with was nothing if not an official proceeding. And he had a corrupt intent to do it, knowing, as he had been advised, that the vice president had no basis for refusing to accept these electors. But more than that, we think there's also evidence that the president and his campaign may have been trying to perpetrate a fraud on the American people with these bogus claims of election fraud. So that's the context in which this came up. It's not a criminal referral, but rather the case that we're making in court to obtain documents that we believe are very relevant to our investigation.
All right, so you mentioned criminal referral. Do you believe, obviously the January 6th committee is issuing subpoenas, finding out information, following the money. In your opinion, is there enough evidence out there? Is there enough information out there for Merrick Garland and the Justice Department to be doing its own investigation?
You know, I can say quite separate apart from what we're doing and the evidence that we revealed in this court pleading, that the tape-recorded conversation, for example, of Donald Trump on the phone with the Secretary of State in Georgia, trying to get the Secretary of State to find 11,780 votes that didn't exist, but the exact number he would need to overtake Biden's lead. I think that tape-recorded conversation would have most people under investigation, and the former president should be treated no differently. So I do think there's evidence that the department should be investigating. I am concerned that I don't see that happening. But it's a different question about whether our committee will ultimately make a criminal referral. We haven't made a decision on that, and you will probably make that decision when we conclude our investigation. I
want to move now to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And during President Biden's State of the Union address, he put out a tweet and you said, tonight, against the backdrop of Putin's invasion of Ukraine, President Biden sent an unequivocal message. America stands with Ukraine and with democracies around the world. We will not bend nor break in the face of an authoritarian bully. There is simply too much at stake. Daily, it seems like we're seeing more sanctions levied against Vladimir Putin and the oligarchs, but it really doesn't seem to be fazing him right now. Is there more that we could be doing?
Well, first of all, I think that the sanctions are far more brutal than what Putin was expecting. I don't think he thought Europe would cohese together the way that it has behind, you know, some really crippling sanctions that will and have already caused the ruble to crash. So I think that's been a bitter shock for him. Will we do more? I think we will, and every day it seems that we're imposing new sanctions. These sanctions were not going to stop him from doing what he's doing immediately, but over time, they're going to take a real toll on the Russian economy, and the Russian people, I think, will come to see the folly of what their leader is doing. So they're very important steps to put the squeeze on Putin. We don't want to send American soldiers into Ukraine to fight the Russians. But this is a way that we can make this really costly. In addition to economic sanctions, we're also providing military support to Ukraine. And a lot of Russians are already going home in body bags. So the sooner this conflict ends, the better for all concerned.